Hey, Bo.
Alfonso, you there?
I am, yes.
Good.
So,
well, do you want to do the introduction to Dermot, and then we'll let Dermot jump in and do the introduction to stakeholders?
yeah, sure. And I guess since this is the middle of the day, I guess we should probably make sure we're recording so that people can listen later, right?
Yeah, that's the nice thing about Twitter. All that stuff happens automatically. It's not. We don't need Craig Bot and all the other different things that we had to do in Discord.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. So we're really excited to have stakeholders, on today to talk about their contribution to, what we're planning as a club, and also what we're planning to do together, which I think is pretty dynamic. We're going to be introducing crypto and new series for crypto learning for their group of accredited and angel investors. And on the other side of that, of course, we have great crypto projects and so forth to be able to show people as well. So it's exciting. It's exciting times. So I'll let Dermot explain a little bit more about what Stakeholders is. The new token concept, briefly, that he's thinking about, and what we might be able to do here in the future together as we kind of bridge that old world finance with the new cutting edge DeFi space. So Dermot, I guess if you're ready, let's hear a little bit about Stakeholders.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Alfonso. Bo, thank you also. So we've, in the last 4 years, been putting together a traditional, old world, indeed, investment and equity investing platform. We do actually use one of the leading players in the market to produce the service. And what that brings us is access to a very large community of business angels. In fact, through deal share, so when we put up a deal share, we offer it as a deal share, we can actually connect to about 9,000 business angels. So it's seen in the UK as being pretty state of the art, one of the best in class. And I think that what has happened in the time that the UK certainly has seen crowdfunding since 2007, when the very first crowdfunding platform was actually formed, is a major innovation in this area. What it does, of course, it brings deal flow to business angels. And of course, it is the business angels that are the bedrock of our business and the way in which we are continuing to build, obviously, the company as we move indeed from strength to strength. I'm hoping that the old world investing is going to merge seamlessly with the new world of investing with digital assets. And I too am super excited to be part of the AWC operation and to be sharing our skills and resources with them. So I think I've probably done a bit of an introduction. Bo, did you want me to cover anything more?
Well, I think let's start at the beginning. So you have gone over kind of at a high level where Stakeholders is, but I know that you're now starting to lean more toward the family office side of things. Can you walk me through that? Real high overview. This is just an introductory call. We'll do more of these as we go forward, but I just want everybody to get an idea as to what that means in this context.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So the launch model that we came to market with was all about business angels, simply using the technology to present quality, curated, and carefully selected deals, which we felt was going to appeal to our investor community. Over time, what we've realized is that actually the ventures were coming to us for bigger sums of investment. So that's now the sort of sweet spot that we have is between 1 and 2, and it will move to 3 and possibly to 5 million investment. And as a result, what we're doing is we're including access to bigger ticket investors. That includes family offices and early stage VCs, as well, of course, as the larger VCs. And what this is all about for that community is deal flow. If they can get plugged in and tied into an earlier stream of high quality deal flow, then that brings them an inside track, if you like, on what is going to be hot in their sector. And when we present the ventures, we go to quite a lot of effort to make sure their secure data room is in very good order. And each of the ventures has to fill out a key information data document. And in there are questions that most angel investors would choose to avoid to ask. These are very matter-of-fact questions, but important to learn, about the track record of the executive team, their interests in various things in life, whether or not they've been in prison, for instance. And we don't get many of those past our grade, I might add. But it's the key questions that most investors would choose not to ask. They're all in the key information data document.
So, and in that's sort of a due diligence guide that follows the structure on the other side of the document, correct? So you can see it from one side and the other.
Of course, absolutely, and it's all balanced in a very sort of clinical way, so that it's easy for the investor to digest and reach a quick decision. But it never stops there, and it should never stop there. We always encourage our angels to get actively involved with the teams that are obviously seeking funding. And one of the great differentiators for Stakeholderz is that we focus a lot on finding world-class talent for our ventures. And the reason simply for that is when they've got the equity funding, then the big job really starts. Can they power ahead and achieve the different next funding milestones faster with the right and upskilled executive teams? And indeed, the foundation of Stakeholderz is way back as a spin out from an executive search firm, where many of the angels that are registered on the platform today are the high net worth individuals that were part of the executive search firm's own register. So talent's a big part of it, and so is the process that mixes between the venture and the business angel.
Well, since you brought up the process, what is the Stakeholderz process? How would you walk through a first-time user on the Stakeholderz process?
Yeah, so obviously the first part that we have to do very thoroughly is the initial screening. And, what we've got to do is to look at it exactly from an angel investor's point of view, or now, as we're moving into the bigger ticket world, our more sophisticated, commercial investors. And, we're looking at it from every aspect. What is the potential of this business for a very large exit and multiple? How long will it take them to get there? What is the capability of the current team? And all of these things are indeed very relevant to our selection and preparation process. We then, having met the team and got a feel for them, we then invite them to pitch. We then have a scorecard, an internal scorecard, which we use to measure the pitch against. And obviously then from that, it allows us to draw some conclusions about what we should do next. If they meet the criteria, then we will put them up on the platform, but we're only putting up about 20% of the ventures we see. Big plus, by the way, back to our professional investors and angels, because obviously we're saving them a lot of time in screening out the deals that are, less interesting. So we're saving them a lot of time, a lot of foot leather, shoe leather, to be able to give them that quality which we believe is so important on the platform.
Well,
So
I think that's a great point that shouldn't be overlooked. You know, is that how much time and energy and effort it takes to properly do due diligence and have people send things back and forth, and to make sure you actually have a full data room before you go to market. Yeah, because so many people think that, and Dermot, I'm sure you can attest to this, but so many people will over the years say, "Hey, I've got this great business," and then after 2 or 3 phone calls, you think, well, no, you've got a great idea, but you don't have a business actually. And that's kind of where, like you said, you save a lot of shoe leather, and finally getting through all of that background information and data. So you know, obviously, in the last years or two, I guess, with COVID and all of that, how has COVID affected the Stakeholderz business?
So actually, we were very fortunate because we were setting up a webinar channel before COVID struck. And so we, in effect, hit the ground running with a very lively and dynamic communications media, which obviously fits so well with the pandemic and the restrictions that came into play. And we were, you know, obviously able to put up the ventures, get the engagement with the investors. What's really interesting now, I think, is the aftermath of all of that, because certainly the webinar channels are as interesting but less popular. I think a lot of people have got webinar channels now, and therefore there's big competition to draw in the audiences to make sure that there is, you know, great attendance for these events. But the webinar certainly comes equipped with a lot of tech that we use. So we use polls a lot. There is always an exit survey which checks on the quality of the event. And all of this is back to the sort of take-home value for our angel investors that are part of our big community and growing. And it's important that we understand how they felt the venture resonated with them. Is it in the market sector, right stage, you know, considerable prospects that we've spotted or not? And that feeds back into our sense of judgment, if you like, for future screening sessions.
So on that, as sort of know your customer, do you have profiles for each one of the angels that are in the network? In other words, do you know what types of projects they're looking for, or types of
Yeah,
they do?
yes, it is very much the angel self-selects. In other words, they can fill out a big profile when they first register if they'd like to. Most angels like to sort of share their presence across a number of different platforms and don't spend too much time filling out forms. But our job then ongoing is to build an active engagement program with the investors so that we learn more about them every time we have contact with them. And the job that we have is actually filling out that very important registration card, if you like, which allows us to understand what their maximum and minimum investment interests are in terms of ticket size, the market sectors that they're interested in, and the stage of the ventures. And in doing that, that is where we're sort of heading towards much more the concept of the private office, the family office, as it might be seen, to provide greater service back into our investor community. I touched on deal flow earlier, and deal flow is important. And of course, if we get it right for the majority, that's really good. But actually, in due course, and we're heading to the newer model, which says actually it's all about precision fit for the bigger ticket investors so that they are actually getting a much greater service from stakeholders as part of being part of our club that you referred to earlier and the community that we are starting to collectively build, which again, I'm super excited about.
Well, you know, from a high level, and this is something that I had shared the other day on our AMA, but I think it's important, I think, for you to reinforce here. You know, really, when we set up the club here, it was about old world investment meets new world tools, right? So
Yeah.
so the new tools being, platforms like Stakeholderz, but also, being able to get involved in crypto projects and DeFi. And a big part of what we talk about is decentralization, demystification of and democratization of finance opportunities. And so when you're talking about the family office model, you're not talking about to the exclusion of your 1,500 members. You're talking about taking that model that high net worth family offices use and applying it in this retail investment type environment. Correct?
Yes, correct. And this is back to your comment, know your customer. And it's about really building a much bigger and better relationship with the key investors. We've recently launched a super angel community, very easy to get involved with. It's a WhatsApp group, and we're just sharing and hosting information through that. And doing that, we're building a profile of all of those members that are online. And our job simply is to listen to the responses so that we get a better level of engagement going forward. And it's this intensive pursuit of high quality engagement that I think really differentiates what we're on our journey to deliver, particularly, as I say, with the private office and indeed to the family offices and angel community.
Well, that's absolutely key. I mean, I have said this for a long time anyway, that you make money on deals when you buy them, not necessarily when you sell them, because you have to be in them right. You have to be
Yeah.
in the right time. Timing is as important as anything. And then, of course, the exit's important. And I think, you play such an important role, or Stakeholderz play such an important role in the early stage financing, but then ultimately that goes into larger stages. And how does Stakeholderz fit in, when that starts to happen, when the bigger players start to come in and jockey for position?
So, I mean, obviously, we're governed by the rules of pari passu, so equal for all. So our angels will get the same treatment as effectively our family offices, bar one exception. Obviously, we'll have got to know the family offices much more in much more detail, and our key investors, angel investors, in much more detail. And it's just simply that knowledge that allows us to give that matching of service and their corresponding interests in terms of investment appetite that will make us stand out. And in fact, I believe that's pretty well the case as we see it today, because of the effort that we have put into getting to know them.
Well, I imagine that becomes synergistic, right? I mean, that you can feed larger either family offices or syndicates opportunities as you grow, and probably vice versa. I would imagine part of the business development where there are few projects that are a little early stage.
Yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. And in fact, it would be fair to say that we're also setting up a syndicate which runs in parallel to the equity funding platform. Its members are also on the platform, so they know and understand the tech. But the value of a syndicate is very different to the value of a platform. And so you can see in doing that, we're sort of extending the value that Stakeholderz per se is actually delivering to its market. And the value of a syndicate is the ability to bring sometimes very new to investing individuals, cashed out entrepreneurs, and we've got a few of those, fair few, that actually have got a lot of money to invest, but are nervous and tentative about the way they want to go about it because they don't know. And of course, clustering them within a syndicate allows them then to socialize each deal, learn from the other more sophisticated investors so that they make fewer mistakes. And, I have in my time met one or two cashed out entrepreneurs that have been through quite a lot of money in a very short space of time because they haven't had that luxury of being able to talk to other people in the syndicate. And the syndicate's reputation is going to be built on, first of all, finding great ventures. In some respects, in parallel, independently of the platform, everyone in the syndicate that we're setting up will have a check for 250,000 or 500,000 in their back pocket, so they can approach any venture and say, I would like you to introduce you to stakeholders and the stakeholder syndicate. And that in its own way, brings quite a lot of cachet to members as they travel the new venture market. And what every member is looking to do is to be recognized and revered indeed for the amazing ventures that we hope continue to introduce, because they will have their own personal networks that they're tapping into. And already the members are taking us into some very exciting and very unique places for us to go and get, first glimpse of some really excellent ventures that we could get involved in.
Sure. And again, I mean, it's such a great opportunity when you're, we decided to go toward the club structure because of, that exact reason, among others, is that when people are more involved, they tend to be more involved, right? I mean, they'll bring projects that they find interesting. They'll also bring along friends or colleagues and sometimes family members that say, hey, this is just a great opportunity because this is a world I know really well. The numbers pair out well, and it's just a great, from our standpoint, we always look at things from a time to market. We try not to get involved overly early in the process, but much like Stakeholderz is at this inflection point. That's the exact point that we like to get involved in projects. And again, I mean, really, you spoke to it earlier on the pari passu point, but really, that's the point of democratization, right? That you're bringing people into projects that they wouldn't otherwise get to see, because generally they're reserved for places that pool their money and invest it on their behalf. Whereas in today's world, you can cut out the middleman between between you and God, so to speak.
Yeah. No, absolutely
Right.
agreed.
So how do you see stakeholders in the DeFi and in crypto model?
Well, I mean, for us, it's an amazing journey. Clearly we're as you've used the term, old world, investment world, and that's the world we've grown up in. It's much slower. It's much, I have to say, probably much less exciting, because it's all, it's process. A lot of it's process, a lot of it's judgment, and it takes time. But I think your, new world and the new world tools that you referred to is frankly awesome. And so what I think we're going to do, I think Stakeholderz is due a bit of a wake up call, because I think your pace of doing business and our pace, which has to be the pace, our pace has to be the pace of our market. If we go too fast, we rush it and we don't get it right.
Sure.
But your pace of doing business is frankly epic. And we've got to catch up, and we've got to learn from you exactly, how you actually get your deals done, and how we can best dovetail into what you're doing and offer you as a partner, the best value that we can bring from our community. And I think our community is going to get really engaged with what you're doing at AWC, because the market, crypto and digital, fantastic, but I also think that you've got a lot of things absolutely right in terms of your learning, your trusted provider status in the sector, and that's exactly what we want to draw on. I think we bring equivalent, because we have our own knowledge transfer and learning program. We have a masterclass in angel investing, and we run that both in the classroom. It's really good in the classroom because you get a very powerful networking effect, and people share their war stories, and that has a corresponding benefit. But we also offer it online.
That's a great point. I mean, whenever you're talking about anything like this, education is so key. Like you said, the cashed out entrepreneurs that have done well, the folks who've inherited some money, other people who are in the market for the first time. Certainly, anybody who's been in the market a long time would know that the war stories and things that people go through from our side of the table is absolutely epic. And if we can teach people a roadmap and some of the warning signs, and just the importance of due diligence, You know, but really, again, it's such a large part. Something I'm really excited about is adding the stakeholders platform to the toolbox for our folks, so that due diligence does get that much more streamlined. You know, if you can go to one place and everything is in a data room where you can go through and, you know, at your pace or at your leisure, go through and say, okay, I've checked all the boxes that are important for me to see, and now I'm ready to make the investment decision, whatever that is, you know, for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, due diligence is not just done through our process with the venture. I talk about the syndicate because actually there are going to be people in the syndicate that are much more on the whole due diligence process. That's the way they think. You know, you have to have that pursuit of the ultimate knowledge, whether or not something is good or bad. And you've got to be able to put that in context, because actually, if you look too hard, there are often reasons why not, but actually the reasons why have been overlooked. And so we will find the people in the syndicate that are absolutely to the manor born, if you like, when it comes to due diligence, and therefore they will get involved in the projects along with the people that introduced it, and then the cluster of supporting angel investors. So I think due diligence is an important subject, such an important subject that you raise, Bo. But I also think that there are lots of ways you can do it and make it better and more effective. And we are on that path with the integration, as I say, of this new syndicate that we're building.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just you know, partial to that data room sort of style where you can go in and make that available to people as they come in. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you can get analysis or paralysis by analysis at the same time. You know, if that's all you want to do is just dig through paperwork and find all the reasons you shouldn't do something, you probably will find the reasons not to do it. And you know, in an inflationary environment like we're in today, you'll lose money by holding on to cash instead of losing money by risking it in the market. So,
Yeah,
so
agreed.
where would you say the sweet spot is right now for stakeholders in its journey? You know, as far as deal size, shape, markets, that kind of thing.
So we set off into the world of early stage and startups, and you've touched on it. You know, this is a bright idea and a pitch deck, and it's jolly hard to read behind the lines on that or between the lines on that. And, you know, we had a jolly good shot at that. And I think we saw a lot of very enthusiastic businesses, and we did exactly what we set out to do. We put forward the top 20%. And so what has happened is that on the range of 200 to 600,000, we realized that actually we were doing as much work as if we were doing a £1 to £2 million raise. And that's where we've come to the private office. And we do an awful lot of work working with the exec teams and engaging with our investor community. So sensible decision has to be made, which says move to the higher value, more profitable sectors. And then it doesn't mean that we've left that ground behind and we'll never look after it. It means that we've got to be innovative and bring that younger market, that smaller ticket size, into our business plan in due course. And we're not there yet. We've obviously got to deploy our resources with skill and care. And if we overstretch ourselves and do too much, and you know, clearly the results will be clear for all to see. And so what I expect we will end up by doing is having a very nice marketplace where great ventures, and we will screen them, but can go up on the platform. And what we will do is we will then get the analytics to inform us much more about what market sectors are in vogue, what type of ventures are relevant for our community. But as you mentioned earlier, it is 1,500 strong today. And our plan is to grow that to much bigger numbers. And the next big milestone we have in mind is 6,000, and we can see it growing to much, much greater than that. And when we get larger communities of angel investors involved, now we can really use the analytics to be much more scientific about what sectors are really hot and which types of ventures are really resonating with our community.
Well, to me, I mean, you guys are in a position that is very hot in the circles that I'm in, which is anything platform related, right?
Yeah.
Having been where you are for some time now, where the trends are, and I think I've heard more times in the last 12 months than maybe ever, I want to be the Uber of X model, or I want to be the Uber of this. And what I constantly remind people is Uber is a platform. So, the reason they got to be the largest cab company in the world is because they don't own any cabs. And the reason Airbnb is the largest hotelier in the world is they don't own any hotel room. So if you avoid the brick and mortar, you can avoid a lot of those mistakes. And I think, from what you guys have, I mean, the platform is just really well positioned. And you're right, that positioning is really important, although it is. And again, my father's a builder on the east end of Long Island, and he'll say it to me all the time. It's the same amount of steps for me to build a, kind of a starter home or a $50 million home, and I'd just rather build the $50 million home at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But that being said, it does sort of leave a little bit of that market not necessarily behind, but it leaves an opportunity to say, okay, this is what you have to do in order to earn your place at this table, which is, I think, just a fantastic opportunity for to keep those doors open for the smaller community, and also for the more of the retail investor individual versus the family office or the institutional type.
Yes, absolutely. And I think your point is so well made. And I think the platform investing world has seen a 2.5 times increase in investment from VCs in the last 18 months. So, it is a very, very hot sector. And I think the alternative finance sector, which we sit in, is also very hot. It's one of the top 6 market sectors in the UK, for instance. So, we've got a lot to get right, and there is absolutely no room for complacency. And as you've rightly been saying, bringing everyone on the journey and not leaving people behind because suddenly we've matured out of a market sector is something that I am very mindful about. And if we can bring even our smaller investors, even more retail investors, and our minimum investment on the platform, by the way, is 10,000. So we tend to avoid the absolute retail sector, but the absolute retail sector is doing really well. There was an amazing exit in the sector, in that retail sector, last year to Republic in New York for $100 million. So, there's beginning to become some quite exciting M&A activity in our sector as well, which is...
Well, wouldn't you say that technology has a lot to do with that? I mean, in the true old world, you didn't want to necessarily build the club. You didn't necessarily want to have 50,000 retail people because it was a bit like herding cats, right? I mean, you just had your phone ringing all the time with people that were confused on some things. But technology does make that a lot easier. Education and these tools that we're talking about. Wouldn't you say that that's true? That technology's kind of come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the enabler, and I think that technology, of course, includes the internet, but the amazing instant connection that we all enjoy on a day-to-day basis because of the internet, and then of course the software around it, and it is such and that's one of the reasons why I would say there's been the innovation around this platform investing sector that we're part of, is simply enabled by the information technology that's been built to service it. And I think it's only set to grow. I think there are different ways that people, are getting much more comms sort of focused, and the integration of, webinar technology and face-to-face. We use Teams a lot in the office. Awesome product from our point of view. We're very lucky to have it. I'm sure that 1 or 2 people may see it slightly differently, but for us it's ideal because we can just get on a phone call and be miles away from whoever we want to talk to, but it's like they're in the same room. Absolutely brilliant enablers. And I think that for me is one of the excitements that we all enjoy today is, what is just around the corner. And by the way, what is just around the corner could indeed be the next unicorn. So, and of course, for us, that's what gets us out of bed. We want to present exciting ventures to our investors so that indeed, in due course, we think we will end up with having a number of unicorns associated with the Stakeholderz House because we found them first and we got them to market and we actually got them, away with a solid round of investment, which was the making of them on the beginning of their journey.
Yeah. So, again, as we sit here, I think, an important thing maybe just to talk about, on the journey is your journey, kind of, if you could walk us through maybe a little bit of history of yourself and Stakeholderz. I think you've touched on it a little bit, but I think it'd be good to have a good investment history on you and the team.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So, I mean, my background is almost incidental, but I am the founder and CEO. So it was me that woke up one morning with the idea and got cracking on Stakeholderz. But in order to get there, I'd had 20 years in executive search. I kept seeing amazing things happen to the ventures that we were putting, top talent into. They were exiting for enormous multiples. And, we were very, very active in making a lot of those multiples happen because of the key people that we were putting in. So that sort of opened my eyes to the people element. And I think when you think about it, there are 3 points a good business must have. It must have great intellectual property. It must be defensible. And that's where the startup comes to market. It must have fantastic people, because if it doesn't, it's going to suffer. And it must have great investment and enough investment for them to actually power the business forward. So those 3 points are really important, and therefore 20 years in executive search gave me an insight into clearly understanding and identifying with how important effective executive teams really are in delivering shareholder and stakeholder value. So, and that's why Stakeholderz, and I hark back to what I said earlier, it has this an interesting element of talent associated with it. And then the company, I have to say that we're probably, like all companies, we're growing up. We've had the most amazing team. I have never seen such creativity and energy and zeal put into the building of a company firsthand than I have actually into Stakeholderz. And I have seen a number of startups. I bought a .com way back in 1997, before the internet was really anything, and I paid just under 10,000 for it. It was, in fact, a complicated management buy-in, but at that level, you couldn't claim that really. And we pivoted the business 3 times in 3 years, and we sold it to a company in Seattle for $10 million. So, I picked up on the energy with that team. It was really effective, and because it was really effective, that allowed us to do the pivots. When I came up with an insight, an indication, and then an edict, and then a plan, they were on the journey. They bought into the plan. They built the plan with me, and they executed on it absolutely brilliantly. But I come back to the team that we have in Stakeholderz, and that's really where we're coming of age. We started off with great zeal and energy. And I think we've now decided that we've really got to get much closer to people that have done the job before. So, and this is my executive search, if you like, experience coming forward. So we are out in the market right now for a head of venture relations. That's somebody that will actually then oversee the really amazing gating in of the tremendous ventures and potential unicorns that I've referred to. And then we're also out in the market for a head of investor relations, because our market for investors, as you probably gathered through our conversation, our chat, is becoming more complex with more different types of investors, the family offices, the VCs. And therefore, we need someone that has had that broad reaching experience and understands how to actually work with each of these parts of our community really well, so that we become, a provider and a supplier of trust. Trusted provider is, for us, is a big accolade that we're seeking all the time, and we never judge it, but we are out to achieve it. And we can only do that by providing really world-class service and attention to detail. And we can only do that if we've got the right people in the company. And so that's why I say we're growing up. We're sort of moving from old, enthusiastic, and I'm sure the team wouldn't mind me saying it, but I call us enthusiastic amateurs. I count myself in that. I'm the founder CEO, and I dare say at some time in the not too distant future, I would be entirely right to replace with someone who really understands the world that we're in and we're moving into far better than I do. But what I will have done is I'll have built a business which is of some considerable substance for them to take over.
Yeah, the analogy I use in those cases is, somebody like Warren Buffett can buy entire railway companies, but he's smart enough to hire qualified people and get out of their way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
but going back to a point that you made on the shareholder relations standpoint and the and kind of the stakeholder, I'll call it. Mouthpiece for the company, is really so important to building community, right? Because that person has to not only understand the ethos of the company, but it has to understand where it's going and where it wants to get to, and and it also has to go through um, all of the other things, right? If you're going to market with 20%, that means 80%, are either still building their profiles or are just a pass, right?
Yeah. So building community, you'll say, right, because with community comes loyalty. I only look at Stakeholderz Ventures because they're the best I ever see. If we could ever get to that as an accolade from an investor, that would be tremendous. And that has to be one of our chosen journeys. We've got to be out to achieve this. And then you then start to say, well, if it's community, it's about other equivalent investor people, and people being as they are, they like to mix. And we did talk about the pandemic earlier, and clearly during that time people were not able to mix at most of the time, but now they're very keen to come back together. So we host informal drinks when we put up a venture, because it's really good to allow people, very much like this fantastic medium, just to have a chat, to get to know each other, to understand each other's perspective on a range of different things, not just business. And so the informal drinks is for us a great, icebreaker, and gets everybody thinking about the things that we're doing. And then we actually go right the way through to city-style presentations to groups of investors. Indeed, we're getting hugely praised for the way those are delivered, because it's different. Normally a platform investing company doesn't do that. Well, it is about building community, and actually you've probably got to build something of an affinity group and community around each venture in order to attract, finally, people that are willing to invest in them. So the community aspect of what we do is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah. So from a community building perspective, have you seen a lot of U.S. investments or investors coming into the club that are interested in UK ventures, or the other way around, or how do you see that? Kind of the continental divide, or the divide of the continents standing in the way today.
Yeah, so we have a great interest in seeing more US investors engage with Stakeholderz. We have seen US investors get involved. Fundamentally, they make decisions on much more of an instinctive feel in the sort of levels that they're investing in, which is lovely to watch. And they are great contributors to the ventures when they actually do invest. So we are interested in US investors definitely getting involved, and we are, I dare say, going to talk, if there's time, a little bit more about how we're going to build the international community. and scale what we've got today out so that it becomes truly international. And the US, of course, is a fundamental marketplace for us to become more involved with. And then the other way round, we are aware, of course, that a lot of our ventures in the UK get bought and sold to American companies. You know, it's a great forging ground for new technology over here. And actually, there's often a discounted valuation that's relevant over here in comparison with the US. And, you know, that's fine. That's our market. And there are a lot of great sales that are made to the US every year. Now, with that becomes a very interesting magnetic pull for British investors to get involved with US ventures as well. And I think that one of the excellent things that I'm expecting from our, you know, our partnership is, you know, is this forging of closer ties in terms of deal flow from the US to the UK, and also angels from the US to the UK, and vice versa. So it becomes a very much, you know, a very active ebb and flow backwards and forwards to satisfy investors' interests and appetites. Really, there are certain things that the UK is world renowned for, and fintech is one of them. And you know, I think when it comes to Europe, we've actually just the UK, interestingly, has just breached the $1 trillion tech revenue and valuation accolade, and that is third to the US and China. So the UK is a really interesting country to watch when it comes to tech. The other thing that's maybe worth noting is that London has actually recently been cited as the second best ecosystem to build a venture in globally. And that is second to Silicon Valley, second only to Silicon Valley. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that are going on over here in the UK, which clearly, because we're here, we've got our finger on the pulse, that we can then start to inform and, you know, gently educate. And we talked about education as well, but educate the US investors about and let them know what is really actually happening over here and the exciting things that they could indeed get involved with.
Well, and to me that goes right back to the democratization, right? I mean, as technology helps us shrink the world, right? And I would venture a guess that I know we've got you in the UK. I know we've got some folks from Turkey and a host of people from the US. But you know, as technology helps us shrink the world, I mean, as a platform, I think we have to do a good job at being able to um, metaphorically and actually, you know, kind of speak a multitude of different languages and be able to educate people from all sorts of walks of life as they come forward. That really is only possible, you know, with new tech.
Well,
Yeah,
it's actually
agreed.
the whole point of it, Bo, is that's actually the big thing that we bring to the mix is not just the democratization, but it's also the decentralization, right? So one of the things that DeFi I think throws into the mix is really people being able to vote with their capital. You know, being able to open up cross borders, not just the U.S. and the U.K., but you know, really on an international basis and a truly decentralized platform. You know, access you know, to not just millionaires, but also you know, individuals who can get involved in crypto, you know, for $50, $100, you know, $1,000. You know, and you know, really make a project fly, right? But the great part I think that Stakeholderz brings is this, like you mentioned, Bo, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's the platform and the scalability of the platform. So by the time you're done, you have like this standardization that allows us to scale, in like a safe environment. And that's kind of the whole club aspect, right? So,
Well, that's since you've chimed in on this point, Alfonso, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on how you see stakeholders and the DeFi addition, or the DeFi kind of bolt on to what they're already doing. Because I mean, to me, I can see clean through it, but I think it'd be helpful if you explain that to some of the people that are on.
well, yeah, certainly. Like, and co-participating in the educational piece, I think, is key. We're doing that anyway. Bridging our old world connections, from the VC world. Showing them how to use, MetaMask, and just some of the core aspects of even our own tools on our own exchange and so forth. Even understanding what a wallet actually can do, and helping walk them through the very first stages of getting involved in crypto. So that's one of the main things I think that as a group we can work on together. Is really opening up the community, our investment community, our VC communities, to the just the sheer magnitude and power of decentralized finance and crypto. And that's kind of the first step, is just the bridge, right? And then after that, the sky's the limit, because then you're truly democratizing capital, and that's what I'm interested in. That's
Well,
the
I mean, so if you take the methodology of the club as it stands today, whereas new projects like Stakeholderz, come through, the early rounds, the friends and family, the onward, the upward. I mean, really, you could apply that very similar model to the other projects that are being fed through Stakeholderz, and that Stakeholderz potentially becomes another feeder for the AWB rewards program. Correct?
Yeah, well, not just a feeder, but a platform, right? Like I could see the Stakeholderz platform being, being modified for crypto projects. I mean, if you look at the certification platforms that exist out there for crypto projects, they're really kind of a joke, right? They're, you go and you get like this certified stamp, which is really just pay to play at the end of the day. And it really doesn't do any due diligence, and it really doesn't vet anything. Whereas, we could create a scenario where not just the members of the club or the project that comes through the club, that has a stakeholder stamp on it, that could bring more than just, the cachet of, of money. It could bring the cachet of, a vetted, safe project, at least from the standpoint of knowing that there's a data room and, true deep dive due diligence.
Well, Dermot spoke about it early in the call, but I mean, it's certainly something that is worth noting here at the end, which is one of the most important things with any funding platform or funding time cycle is the velocity of capital. And so crypto allows people to not just get into projects, but also get out of them. Do you want to speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of the usual way of getting out, which I'm sure Dermot's more than familiar with, is you would normally go through the rounds of friends and family to Series A, Series B, and then that company becomes public, or becomes something that that's launched or sold to another acquiring entity that has an exit strategy. So for us, though, again, this is part of that democratization and decentralization. For us, it happens out of the gate. Crypto is highly liquid from a standpoint of you don't have the usual Rule 144 here in the U.S. Or holding periods until you're allowed to sell. You're allowed to start to sell as soon as the things are on the exchanges. So the time to market, from that perspective, is a lot faster, and the time to liquidity is a lot faster. It's also brutal. It's also one of these things that has to, that's why you see the volatility inside the market as well. So but I really think that That's the exciting part of it. The exciting part of it is you can go in a matter of days. I mean, just look at the metaverse projects and the land that just sold the other day, right? I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in a period of days. So it's just the speed of the aggregation of capital has never before been seen, I don't think. And again, I don't think anybody's reinventing capitalism, but I do think that we're changing and democratizing and decentralizing, and that's the piece that I'm most excited about. So and so the difference is this is a whole lot faster, and it can get projects launched in a much more timely manner.
And I can see a very interesting sort of halfway house hybrid, basically supporting the speed and the pace that you refer to, Alfonso, with the traditional investment. And maybe the traditional investment comes in first, and that triggers off a complete interest in a runaway success, which involves crypto and DeFi. So, I think the combination of these two sources of capital and the speed at which they operate, almost instantly for crypto, but a little bit more measured and considered with the traditional old world investment that we've been talking about, is going to provide some really interesting, very strong decisions on early stage investment opportunities, which ultimately lead to spectacular exits.
Yeah, totally agree. And absolutely.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to be that, right? I mean, it's sort of becomes the cream that rises to the top, right? And if you look at, we certainly have done it in the club, and will continue to do it as we go forward together. But oftentimes that first money, that bridge that needs to take place to allow these other things to come together is a really interesting way to position yourself in projects, and certainly is a lesson we learned probably the hard way over the last 20 years. But over those 20 years of doing these types of ventures, you do learn a lot, and certainly would love to share that education. That's the last thing that we've talked about, decentralization, but really the education is demystifying it, so that people can really understand this at a fundamental level, and really feel comfortable, in what they're involved in.
Fully agreed.
Well,
Agreed.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's all right. So, Alfonso, do you have anything else that you want to add? I know that we'll be coming out with the white paper and some of the tokenomics and the things that people who are club members are used to seeing at this point. But is there anything in here that you think we need to cover before we get into that?
No, I'm just, I'm really excited about the project, and I think, being able to, to really utilize the platform even for our own projects, and for club projects and stuff as well, is just, it's just going to be a great journey. So, really excited about it. It's one of these things that I think it's not, we're not stretching for anything. This is a perfect fit. And it's a perfect time. So, we're really looking forward to the next few days.
Well,
Very
as
good.
always,
So we.
yeah, I'd like to open it up, since this is an Ask Me Anything and I've asked all the questions. I'd like to be able to open it up to anybody who's got any questions on the in the general room. I didn't see any hands getting raised along the way, but happy to open this up now. All right. Well, if there aren't any questions, this will not be the final AMA that we have with Dermot. This is going to be the first of many. So look forward to seeing questions as they come up. And Dermot, just to give you an idea, generally speaking, right as I hit hang up, there's about 6 or 7 questions that'll come across through various methods. So I will share those with you as they come through, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody, have a great day, a great evening, wherever it is you are, and look forward to talking to you again here shortly.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much.
All right, bye, everybody.